Have you ever wondered how the companies that collect data from thousands of people, from thousands of web pages, have you ever wondered how they do that automatically? So, in this video, I'll show you step by step how to scrape any website using Python's request library and Beautiful Soup. And by the end, you'll be basically pulling live data from websites in just a few lines of code. But first, why would you want to do web scraping and what are some of the ethical considerations around it? So, when you're doing web scraping, there's a number of things that you sort of have to think of in terms of the usage. There are people who use web scraping for market research, there are people who use it for price monitoring. For example, if you're trying to monitor the price of how the stock market is performing, any academic research that you need to do, you want to automate some repetitive tasks. Web scraping is one of the tools that we use, and it's going to enable you to do that. So, just to understand fully, web scraping basically powers a lot of real world applications. So the price trackers, when we try to do sentiment analysis. So, for example, if you want to, especially on Twitter, people use Twitter for sentiment analysis a lot of the times. So they use web scraping for that. If you want to generate leads for your business, web scraping also does help a lot, and there's a lot more that goes into it. But before you scrape data, remember that you always have to check the site. If it has, the sites usually have a site known as, not a site but a file called robots.txt. And I'm going to just have this as a comment. And today I'm using Visual Studio Code because I got a lot of complaints about the other code editor, so I'll be using this for future videos. So you need to check the site's robots.txt and also check the terms of service for the site that you're trying to scrape, right? Because you don't want to overload servers with too many requests, and you need to be respectful of data ownership in general. So these are the few things that we usually look at. So web scraping, as you've concluded up to now, is basically the art of getting data. Basically, I think of it as an art of getting or pulling data from, let's say, okay, for now let's just say from websites, because there are many ways that you can do it. Yeah, so this is web scraping. Now, there's a few things that you need to have set up for you to be able to use, for you to start doing web scraping. And the first is you need Python installed in your machine. So you need at least a Python 3.8 and above. But I believe most of us already have about Python 3.1012 and above. So you also need a code editor. Visual Studio Code that we're using is a good code editor that you can use. And the main thing that you need from here is also this two main Python packages. So I already have them installed, but I'm going to show you anyway. So you can pull your terminal from Visual Studio Code, or you can just use your other terminal in your machine. I'm using an Ubuntu machine, so this is what my terminal looks like. But any other terminal in your machine, either way, just use Visual Studio Code. It's pretty direct. So you need to just do pip install. We need the two libraries that I mentioned in the beginning, the two packages. You need requests, and you also need Beautiful Soup. So in this case, for Beautiful Soup, you need Beautiful Soup 4 is the one that you need to install. And once you hit enter, it should be able to install it in your machine. So in my case here, I already have it. I already have it installed. But I need to sort of, like in your case, just use pip install. In my case, I have to specify the Python packages and all for it to finish installing. But either way, use pip install requests in Beautiful Soup 4. That installs both of them at the same time. Once you have those two installed, the next thing that I want us to look at is inspecting our web page, because we're going to be scraping data from web pages that are available basically on the internet. And a page that we're going to be scraping is this page here. It's called, just go to quotes.toscrape.com. I'll just copy this and have it as a comment somewhere here. So this, just go to this link, https quotes.toscript.com. And this is what it looks like. So to scrape, the first thing you need to understand is the HTML structure of the website that you're trying to scrape data from. And how you get the HTML structure, you basically just right click anywhere on the website, then you can go to inspect. So inspect is the last option I have down there. And once you choose inspect, the main thing that you will try to notice here, let me just do this, are these HTML tags that you see here. So you need to look at the tags, you need to look at the classes, the IDs. So let me just try to zoom a little bit. Okay, then so what you do here is you look at any part. So for example, let's focus on this div here. You see, when I hover over this div, it covers all the content that is on the page here on the left side. So that shows me that all the content that is there is inside of this div. Then I can come in now and check some of the other inner divs to understand what is going on. So if I go to this div, you also notice that it covers all the content. So I can just expand on that. Then we also have multiple other divs. But now what you'll notice is that each of the divs that is in here, it has rather represents each of the quotes that exist on this web page. So as you can see, when I hover over them, you can be able to see everything clearly. So in this div, you need to notice the class name of a div like this one. Then you can also just go further to expand, because there's a lot more information that you can get. Notice that on this quotes, there's the quote itself, or rather there's the block that contains the quote. Then you have the quote itself, you have the author of that quote, you have the tags. So there's a lot of information that you can get from just a single one. So for example, let's stick with the first one here that has the quote by Albert Einstein. So okay, it says the world as we have created it is a process of our thinking. It cannot be changed without changing our thinking. I mean, that's pretty inspirational. Anyway, back to the business. So if you come here to this first div here, you expand on that, and then you'll notice that we have three spans. So this is why I mentioned that you have to be very careful rather than notice all this. You'll notice that the first span here is the one that has the text. It even has a class name of text. So if you expand on this, you'll notice that this is the text. So we need to take note of that. Then you come to the second span. It is one that contains the name of the person who said that quote. Then in this case, you'll notice that it's still the same thing here. The name, this is the name. The name is enclosed in this small tag. There's an anchor tag here for the about. Now, this is one thing to notice about here as well, because if you go to if I click on about, this is about here. If you can see, I'm hovering. So if I click on about, you'll notice that it takes us to a different page that tells us about Albert Einstein and all the history about Albert Einstein. You also notice that the page changed here in terms of HTML. The reason I want you to notice that is because there's an aspect of web scraping I'm going to be looking at where you can be able to scrape this page as it is, but also be able to automatically click on these links through your scraper. So you don't have to do it manually, but just through your code. And how we're going to do that is through what you've been able to see here. So I am going to just expand on this. You'll see this span here. And this anchor tag, it has a URL extension /author /Albert Einstein. So we're going to take note of that. And then you can also see the tags in a different div that has a class of tags. So that is how you inspect. Now, I believe everyone at this point already understands HTML because we've been doing that as well. But if by any chance you have not been part of the Python series that we've been doing from the beginning, just look at the playlist, or you can just look back on some of the previous videos. These are a few videos about HTML and CSS. So those are going to show you what these tags mean. What is a div tag? What is a class? What is a class name? All this stuff that you can see here. So go look at that. And also just feel free to go back and look at all the previous videos as well if you want to understand some of these concepts. Anyway, that out of the way. So now we fully understand how you can inspect our website. That is the main thing that I want us to understand here. So we're going to the first step now of us web scraping, after we've understood the structure of our website, is to make requests to that website. So ideally, you have to request for the information from the website. And how you request for the information is also pretty direct, actually. So we use one of this. So I've created, not that I created this file, it's called scrape_quotes.py. It is in a folder that I called web scraping. All this is going to be available like this on GitHub. Just check the link in the description for the GitHub repository. Anyway, we have a scrape underscore quotes.py. And the first thing that, like I mentioned, we do is we need to make a request to fetch that data. So the first thing we need to do is we need to import the request library that we just installed. Once we import the request library, then we can also just make sure that we note the URL. That is the URL here, we're referring to this link here, the link to the website. So I'm just going to copy that there. And we're going to have it enclosed in speech marks, of course, because it is a string. Once we have this, the next thing that we need is we need to now make a request. So how we make a request is we use the request library there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to store the response in a variable called response. So to make a request, we just say requests.get, then we pass in the URL like that. So once you do this should be able to get us what you need. Then we can try to check a few things. So once you make request.get, it basically goes to this URL here, in this case, which is our website. Then you get a response. So we need to understand what the response looks like. But ideally, the response is contains all the information about the website. So the HTML structure, everything. But there's a way that you try and get that information. What I'm going to try and do here, I'll just try and print response. That is that response that we've just gotten, and for you to see what the response looks like. So we'll just say here Python 3, and then we say script quotes.py. So once I hit enter, you see it gives us this statement, response 200. So in web development, there's what we refer to as status codes. Status codes are the ones that tell you whether the request that you've made is successful or not, whether I'm sure you've heard of, or whether you've tried to access a website before and you get like a 404 error. So those are what we refer to as status codes. But 200 is a status code that refers to okay. So it means that your request was successful. So if we try to do here, let's try to actually let's print it here. So we say print response dot status code, just like that. Then we run our code. Okay, let me just run this again. So if we do that and run our code, you see we get 200. Okay, so that is 200. That's the response. The other thing that you can get as well here is I'm going to do this in a new line. You can say response dot text. This is going to give you the text, but now this is from the HTML. So for now, let's actually just try to print that to see what you can get. We run our code, and you see what you get here. This is the HTML from our website. This is the HTML, and it's a lot, so you can scroll all the way. This is the entire HTML, and if you look at this, it's pretty similar to what you saw when you're trying to inspect. You can see the div of quote. It had about 3 spans inside of it. One of the spans contains the link, the anchor tag and all. So we saw all this. So that is when you try to, you just do the text. And because we've looked at lists before as well, and you understand lists, you can just try to slice this, and you can say you want to get, let's say the first 200 characters of the HTML. So you run this code again, and this is what you're going to get. So these are the first 200 characters of starting from here, of the HTML. So again, that was just for sure there. So now our request has succeeded. We've seen what we've been able to do. We've seen how we can be able to pass everything that you want with response.text as well. Now, the next step from here, this is usually the first step that you take. The next step is passing the HTML with BeautifulSoup. So BeautifulSoup is the second library or Python package that we installed. And BeautifulSoup is the one that helps us pass our HTML. So talking about pass of PARSE. So it's one that helps us pass our HTML. And I'm going to just minimize this terminal. Then we can get it here. So the first thing you need to do is we need to import BeautifulSoup, and you can do that right after request. So we can just say import. But now how you import BeautifulSoup is a little bit different. So you say, remember we installed BeautifulSoup 4. So you say from BS4 import, from BS4 import BeautifulSoup. like that. So that is how you import Beautiful Soup to your code. Now, once we have Beautiful Soup installed, the next thing that we need to do here, okay, so okay, I'm getting this these highlights here. They shouldn't worry you. I have there's this extension. It's known as Fleck 8. It's the one that monitors your Python code to ensure that you follow the PEP 8 guidelines. So PEP 8 guidelines are basically the guidelines on the Pythonic way of writing code, right? So that you follow all the Python guidelines and everything. So anyway, we've imported this. Like I mentioned, the next thing that you do is so I'll just get rid of this part here. We have our response. So to pass the information, like you've mentioned, Beautiful Soup is going to turn the raw HTML into a searchable object, right? So a searchable object. And we've talked about objects before, but anyway, so let's do this here. So I'm going to create a variable called soup, and using Beautiful Soup, we pass in, it takes in two arguments. First, it takes in the HTML, which is so we get with response.text. Then the second argument is the HTML parser. Remember, Beautiful Soup basically turns raw HTML into a searchable object, which is what you talked about, basically passing the HTML. So you just say HTML dot parser like that. And with this, we can just try to basically check what soup is in terms of the data type. Remember, we talked about data types before. So we can just say print, and then we just say type. So we use the type method, then we pass in soup just to confirm that it is an object that you want here. So I'm going to just expand this, then we run the code again. Once we run that, you see we get it's saying module not found, no module named BS4. I have Beautiful Soup installed. Well, let me just try to do this again. So pip install uh, Beautiful Soup 4. Okay, so it's telling me here that I need to do. Oh, okay, yeah, I see what it's telling me this. So what I can try to do, I can create an environment variable for this. It will like easily just handle everything. And how you create an environment variable, I'm going to let me actually just create the environment variable for the entire everything. So I'll just say Python 3, and then dash m venv. This is going to create a virtual environment. Then, so a virtual environment, let me just explain what it is. A virtual environment is basically allows you to sort of it allows you to separate, sort of like separate concerns in a way, separate your working environment from the general environment in your machine. So that is why I was getting that the error that you got. It only happens actually in Linux systems, in the Linux machine. So, and I can go ahead and activate this. So just say source venv /bin /activate, like that. So in this case, this is what it looks like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to okay, should I actually do this? Okay, yeah, I'm going to create this. So what this line does, echo venv, it's going to create a file called .gitignore. Then inside of that file, it's going to pass in the virtual environment. The reason why you need the .gitignore file, rather why I need it in this case, is because uh, it's not advisable to push the virtual environment to GitHub, right? So it's a huge file and everything. So it's not advisable to push it to GitHub. So we usually put it in a .gitignore file so that the Git that I'm using to track the changes in my code does not basically track that. So that's what that does. Anyway, let's move to, I call this folder web scraping. And inside here, so now I'll just do pip install. This should do it. Pip install Beautiful Soup. Okay, should be lowercase. Beautiful Soup 4 request is already installed, so just Beautiful Soup. Okay, it has installed Beautiful Soup. Actually, let me just try to install request as well. Uh, okay, so I think request is also installed in the wider in the machine, but I need to install it in this virtual environment that I've done. Okay, so but in your case, you don't really have to do this, but you can do it as well. I'm going to have a lesson at some point, a video tutorial that is going to walk you through everything that I've done and how you can do it from scratch. But I hope it has made sense what I've done here. So now that we have that, let's try to run our code again. Okay, that is what we're trying to do. So now that I'm using a virtual environment, I actually don't have to say Python 3. I can just say Python, then script.p quotes.py, and that runs, right? So as you can see here, we're getting class bs4.beautifulsoup. That's what tells us that what you have what you have there is the right thing. So now that we've done this, we can traverse the DOM in Python. So the DOM refers to document object model, and that is basically what rather how the websites work in general. So the document object model refers to the HTML document that we have and how you can be able to traverse through it as an object as well. Again, I hope that sort of makes sense. It's the DOM part is just web development jargon. Back to what we've been doing. So I don't foresee us facing any other issues as we proceed. So now the next step after we have passed our HTML here is to select the elements that we want to get data from, right? Now, this is where I'd like you to go back to what we did when you were inspecting this website here. So when you're inspecting, and I'm going to just remove this print, you don't need it anymore. So how you can be able to get, for example, all the quotes, note that all the quotes are here. And if you look at this, all the quotes have a class of text. Now, you might ask yourself, how do I know this? This is because whenever you're building a website, you usually just this is every as you can see in each of these blocks that have the quotes, they have the same design, same format, same everything. The only thing that changes is the content. That shows you that there's uniformity in terms of how it was built. So that means that if the first quote is in a span that has a class of text, and then every other quote is also the same thing. And you can, if you go to this random one, you can see it is in a class called text, right? So note that that is very important. So this is where we are. Yeah, so now how we get all the quotes is I'm going to create a variable here called quotes, and this is where we're going to store something. So we have soup. Now remember, soup is the object that we just created, right? So we did the parsing with the HTML and turned our raw HTML into a searchable object, and we've seen it's an object with this response that we got here. So that is already sort of this already ascertained basically. Now let's go ahead and do this. So now we'll just say soup soup dot find all. Find all is one of the methods that it comes with. Then it takes in two arguments. The first argument is the HTML tag. So in this case, the HTML tag is div. So note that the outer quote here is called the quote is called div, right? So not the quote, but rather the HTML tag. It's called div that contains everything. So we pass in div. Then the next thing that we need is the class. So the class name of everything. So you just say class underscore. Then in this case, we check the class. Remember, the class is called quote. This is the class of the entire block, basically. So we pass in the name of the class, which is quote, like that. Once we do this, then we can try to basically check the length of the quotes. Again, this is just simple thing that we're doing here for to try and see what the outputs we're getting look like. So you can just say print, then we use the len method, of course, and then we pass in quotes like that. And let's run our code here to see what we get. So once we run that, what do we get? We get 10. So what it's telling us is that we have 10 quotes, right? So if we come here, we try and count everything that we have manually. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, so we actually have 10 quotes on this first page of this website. and you're able to get that because it has gotten us everything here. So now that we've gotten this, you can also just try to check the type of quotes. If you're a bit more curious, you can just say type quotes, and then we run our code again. And then when you do that, you see it tells us again bs4.element, but anyway, it's an object, as you can see there. So we've been able to check the length. So we've seen the number of quotes. The next step that we take here is because there are 10 of them, we can basically loop through them using a for loop. So you can just iterate through everything. So to do a simple iteration here, we can just say for quote in quotes. Again, I'm using quote because I think you understand how for loops work, so I want to go further into that. So for each quote that we have in quotes, we're going to try and find the text, that is the quote itself, the author of the quote, and the tags, all this information that you can simply see here on this page. So to get the text, we're going to state in a variable called text. We just need to say quote, and then we use a method called find. Note that we use we used the find all method to get all the quotes, right? Then we can use the find method to get a specific quote. Now to use the find, if you want a specific quote, if you come here, you'll notice that this quote for us, the quote is in a span tag. So the first method that this takes is the tag. So in this case, it is a span tag. Then it also takes in a class name. So in this case, you just say class. And what is the name of the class here? So the class is text. So it has a name of text. So once we do that, to make sure that we get the right quote that we want, we can just say that text dot get underscore text. But before we do that, I'm going to just basically show you what this means. So I'm going to print text, so you can see why we're taking the next step here. So if I run this, so remember it's going to iterate 10 times because we saw the quotes are 10. So this should be able to do this quickly. Awesome. So as you can see here, we have spans, but we have 10 spans, and we have the span, the entire HTML tag, and we have the text that we need. So for us to extract this text from the span tag, this is where we need a method. It's called a get text method. You can say .get underscore text. And we do with that, once we have saved and we run the code again, now we're going to get only the text. So as you can see here, now we only have the text, or the quotes in this case. Beautiful. I think this makes sense now. Now that we've gotten the text, we can easily get the rest. Okay, you can easily get the rest of the information that you want. So for example, if we want to get the name of the author of that, so we'll just say quote dot find as well. But now, in terms of the HTML tag, note that this is the by. So by is here. So by, but we just want the name. The name is in a tag called small. So it is in a small tag with a class name of author. So in that case, the HTML tag is small, and the class is called author, like that. Then we use get text as well, get underscore text, like that. Once we get the author, then we can go ahead and also get the tags. So to get the tags, this is what the tags look like. Okay, here we have this div called tags. So if you expand on this div, you can see where is it? Here. So we have anchor tags. So we have anchor tags here that have a class name of tag, and these are the tags that you can see here. Tag page 1. You can see all these tags basically. So if we want to get the tags, we have to iterate through the tags basically, and we have to sort of repeat the entire process that we did from before. So remember when you say .find all, because the tags are inside of other HTML methods that we have to go over. So to do this, I'm going to use list comprehension to just basically do everything easily. So I'll just say t.get underscore text, and just say for t in, this is now basically for tag in, we use quote dot find all, like I mentioned, just like what we did before, dot find underscore all. Then we pass in the tag. So the first tag is the a tag. Then we pass in the class name. In this case, the class name is tag. Let me just confirm that. Yeah, the class name was tag. So find all tag. Okay, I think there's something that I'm missing here. Okay, so t dot get tags, get underscore tags, 40 in quote dot find all. Then okay, I'm missing an equal sign here. Class, the assignment operator. So the class is tag. Okay, there's something else that why am I not saying this? So we have the find all, opening and closing. Uh, okay, we have tags. Was not closed. We have the closing here. So the closing square bracket. So it's quote dot find all. We pass in the a tag. What am I missing here? I seem to be missing something that I can't find. Basically in front of my face. Again, don't worry. This usually happens. So for tag in quotes dot find all, we return the tag dot text like that. Okay, let's proceed, and I'm going to. Okay, think I think I need to. So we have class. Oh, okay. Like I mentioned, it happens usually something that is in front of your face. I didn't close this tag here, the speech mark. You see, anyway, yeah, I believe by now you understand this thing. So then we're going to just print here. So I want to print the text itself. Then I am going to have an author. So in this case, just have a speech mark with a hyphen. Then we have the author. Note that you can easily use an f string here. Actually, an f string would work really well. It's just that I'm not in the mood of using an f string right now. I can just say other tags. We basically have the tags here on the side, like that. So in this case, I've saved everything. Now let's run our code. So we run our code. Should be able to give us all the quotes with the authors, everything. So I'm going to just expand on this for you to see. So you can see we have the first quote here, the world, all that. Let me read a different one. So which one is this? By Eleanor Roosevelt. So it says, "A woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong it is until it's in hot water." Then Eleanor, and then you have we have the tags right there next to it. So just like that, we've been able to scrape the quotes from this page, the first page that you can see here, and this is what we have, and we have the pages, rather the quotes, the text, everything here. This is how you can easily scrape a lot of information from any web page that you want to find. And there are many ways that you can go about after doing this. So now that you have them, because you just don't scrape information for the sake of it, okay, because of course you can do that if you want to, but most of the time you're motivated by something. You want to store this information somewhere. You want to do some sort of analysis on that using that information. There's all these reasons that a lot of people have as to why they want to do scraping. And from what you've seen here, I'm sure you already have an idea of how you can even make the code better, more efficient. But the major thing I want to show you is how you can. We've looked at file handling before, so check that video if you forgot. You just need a quick refresher. But we can store all these codes in a file. And how we do that, it's pretty direct because we already have the main logic of our application here with our for loop. So we already have the main logic. The only thing that we need to do is we need to wrap this for loop inside of a with open. So I'll just do this. So we'll just say with open. Then we say we want to store these quotes in a file called, let's say, quotes.csv. You can make it a txt if you want to. We're going to open this file in write mode. Then we're going to just format it a little bit. So everything we're going to have a new line. Then we also have some sort of encoding here. So we're going to have encoding, and let's just use UTF-8 encoding. UTF-8. UTF-8 usually has a hyphen there. So we open the file as, I'll just open it as file. Then now this needs to move one tab inside. So just the simple shortcut is highlight everything, then just click on tab it's basically moves everything one level inside this file here. So once you've done that, the first thing we need to do is we need to use the CSV writer. So CSV has a dot writer method. So you store this in a variable called writer. So we need this writer. It's very important. So you just say CSV dot writer. It helps us write. It allows us to write into the file. So we have csv.writer. So the thing about CSV as well, whenever you are working with CSV, you have to import it. So I'm going to import CSV the top here. Again, not all the imports have to appear at the top. To understand all these Python rules, basically go read the PEP 8 guidelines. They should be able to give you all the nitty gritties that you want to know. So then you can just say write the writer, which you just gotten from CSV, write row, and we're going to write our information arrange it in a row in the CSV. So the first thing I want us to do is I want us to have a quote. So you can have a quote as the title of the first column is going to be a quote. The second column is going to be the author of that quote, and the last column is going to be the tag that are attached to each of the quotes. So and just add an extra line there. So in this case, we've opened. Actually, let me just add some comments here. So the first thing you do is open CSV. Then once you've opened, okay, the other thing, okay, I think I should probably just do this here as well. So I'm going to just say fetch and pass. That's simple enough to understand what you're doing. We're fetching, then we are passing in beautiful soup. Anyway, then we have our quotes here. So we have our quotes in the for loop. So what this for loop is doing is it's basically extracting the quotes that we want, and then we're going to write in the information in that rows. So I'll just have another comment here as well. I'll just say extract and write rows. I'm doing this commenting so that when you have access to the code, you can be able to just easily remember what you're doing here. So I'm going to write all this in a row. So we don't need to write this information in a rather print it out. So using writer, I'm sure you already can tell what I'm about to do here. So just say writer dot write row. Then in each row, we follow the same format that we did. The first is the quote. The quote is represented by text, the text variable. The next is the author, as already saw there, and also tags in the end. So this should be able to do everything that you want. So this should be able to store this. And let me just clear this. I want you to keep an eye on this side as I run the code, because it should be able to create the file for us. So I'll say here, okay, this is what I need to do. So I'll say Python, then it's called script underscore quotes.py, and I hit enter. And 1 2 3, awesome. So you can see we have a quotes.csv file that has been created here. And if I click on this CSV file, you can see this is what it looks like here. So the reason it's reading like this on my end is because I don't actually thought I had it. It looks like I uninstalled it. I don't have a CSV reader on my Visual Studio Code. So I don't need to install it right now. Okay, let me just install that. Then let's hope it formats everything as I want it to, so you can view it in CSV. Okay, installed, and it has added some color to just differentiate everything. But if you open it, you can simply open it in any CSV reader that you have in your machine. But yeah, so this is what we have, and it should be in some columns, all that. Okay. I thought I had a CSV reader on my machine. Let me just try to quickly search on my Visual Studio Code. Just say CSV reader. Okay, looks like I uninstalled it. I don't know what I was thinking when I uninstalled it. Is it this one? Okay, we have seamlessly display and edit CSV. Let me see the format that this gives us. Okay, yeah, that's the format that I want to open everything in. So I'll just say trust and install, and it should. Why is it taking too long? Yeah, I need to learn a lot of patience. But once it is installed, we can be able to basically just view everything that we want. So this is what we've been able to do. We actually think it just finished installing. So okay, let's try to open this file. Awesome, awesome. So now we have it in the table format for any .csv extension. You can even open it in an Excel sheet, and it will be able to, in Excel, it should be able to show the tables. So you have the quote, we have the author, and we have the tags on this side. And now from this, you can just use the information as much as you'd like, right? So depending the kind of information you want to install, that you want to scrape, you can basically stretch it, as we've been able to see here. Now, I believe this is we understand everything that we've done here. So this is the basic way that you can do your web scraping. Like the simple, you want to get information out of a specific web page, you can simply do it with this. But you sometimes you want to extend it further, because like in our case here, we've only been able to get information from this first page that is here. But maybe you want all the quotes that are listed on this page, right? Or you want quotes from the first 100 pages. There are pages that are usually like very lengthy, and you want to get information from all of them. So there are very many of this extensions that can be able to do. And for example, yeah, now this is where we talk about like pagination. So pagination is basically simply what you can see here, or sometimes when you see we have pages 1, 2, 3, 4 listed on our web page somewhere below here. That's ideally what pagination is. So in that case, you can be able to, with your simple script here as well, you just extend it a little bit, and you start looping through the pages that are there. And you do that by simply changing the URL. And this is what I mean. So in this case, we have all these quotes, right? And what you I want you to notice what I do here. So when I click on this next, and I also want you to even note how the URL changes up there. So when I click on next, I click that, you see how it changes the URL. The URL changes to /page/2. This is the extension that gets added. The original URL remains, but there's this extension that gets added. So that is your way in. So all you need to do is basically find a way of adding that URL on the front at the front here, but you do it dynamically. You don't hard code it, right? So how can you be able to do that dynamically? It's quite simple. So we use sometimes we use what we refer to as headers and user agents. So the headers and user agents, they're meant for a few things here. So we need to sort of like enclose everything together before we can do that extension. Sometimes some sites can basically block the request that you try to make. So like I mentioned, you usually find that files have robots.txt files. So you always have to check to see which paths the robots.txt file basically let you know whether you are allowed to scrape the site to begin with, or even if you are allowed, what sections of the website are you allowed to scrape. So the first thing on making sure that we check whether some like to avoid sites basically blocking the default request that we make is we add what we refer to as headers. So what you do here, I'm going to start with that one. So I'll just do it probably right after the URL here. So I'm going to create headers, and headers is going to be a dictionary. And then we add this user agents, just say user hyphen agent. Then we give it a value of Mozilla 5.0. So once we do this, whenever we're making a request to a URL, we add a header, the headers next to it. So just say headers to be headers that we just created there. So this is going to help us prevent that blocking whenever our site is blocked whenever we're trying to make a request to it. To try and check the robots.txt file, let me just show you that how you do that quickly. So I'll just actually open it in a new file, so just say you go to the specific site, in this case quotes.scrape.com/, then you pass in that name, just say robots.txt, then you hit enter. And once you do that, you see here it says not found, URL not found, even encountered. So this basically looks like it doesn't have a robots.txt file. But you can also find this robots.txt file on on a different website. For example, you can go to our website, like let's say netflix.com. Then you say / robots.txt. You hit enter, and let's see what we get. So you can see here, this is what you get. Say disallow account status. It basically shows you some of the things that you shouldn't be scraping if you wanted to scrape. But you can see also it has the user agent that we just added right now. You can see all these things here basically. Yeah. So that is why you need the robots.txt file, or you have to check for it to see what you're allowed and not allowed to do. So now that we've done that, the first thing that I want us to do is, for example, okay, let me just think something that you can do logically next year that will not sort of cause a lot of give us a lot of work to do. So pagination is the main thing. So let me actually just talk about pagination here quickly. So we talked about pagination, right? One thing that you notice that changed here is I'll just add here. So it was /page / the name of the page, right? So for example, if I say the name of the page 2 right there, then we run our code, it's going to update everything. And if you come to quotes.txt, you'll notice that there's a bit of a change in the quotes, right? The first one that we had earlier on was Albert Einstein. We can be able to see how the quotes have changed. Now, how you go ahead and extend this is you don't need to hard code this, because if you do that, I believe you can already see how that is a problem. You can't basically go to do it manually if you want to do it. So there are few changes that you want to make. We already created the quotes.csv file, CSV file, so you don't want to be writing into that file every time. So you'll probably just change the method here from write to append. So to be append, use the a for append. Then you can have everything in a loop, right? You can have everything occurring in a loop. Then at each iteration, once it has finished, it updates this value here. So you can, okay, let's do this actually. I'll just do it from scratch. So you can create a function. Let's create a function. We're going to call this function, let's say scrape. And this scrape function, it's only going to take in the number of pages that you want to scrape, right? So once you give it the number of pages you want to scrape, I'm going to take everything here. You actually can extend it further, even give it a URL, give it two parameters. Should you do that? Yeah, actually, let's do that. I'm going to give it two parameters. It's going to take in, scrape is going to take in the URL of the page that you want to get. Then it's also going to take in the number of pages that you want to scrape from that. Then I'll pass everything here. I'm going to just format it well. So I'm going to get rid of that URL right now. So I move everything one tab inside like that. And what else do we need here? So this URL, because it's the one that you're going to need when you're calling the function, so it will just be outside the function here. Okay. We've talked about scoping. So again, you can just refer to the video on scoping in the Python series or the Python playlist to understand what is happening here, if it doesn't make sense. And I can just add a simple doc string here. And I'll just say here something like, I'll just say quotes, quotes website scraper. I'll just have that for now. Now, once we have that, we have the headers. Now, when you're doing a response, remember we're passing in the URL here, right? So I'm going to create another variable in here, and I'll call it URL as well. Actually, just paste what he just did. So it takes in the URL here, right? Then once it takes in the URL, it makes a request. But now this is where we change a few things here. Using an F string, you can just use an F string. Then we basically pass in pages. Was it pages or page? Yeah, it was page / then the number of the page. So here's where we pass in pages, as you can see there. So it's going to go to the URL and then the page that we basically specify. So it's going to do that. The URL is going to, everything else is going to happen typically as we stated it. So what I'm going to do here is, okay, we actually don't need this URL, honestly, because we already have it defined. So we don't need a URL. That will be just complicating everything. You don't need a URL parameter there. Then we should be good to go. Okay, let's run our code to see. So we can just say def. We need to run the call the function. So it's called script. Then we pass in, we tell it the number of pages that we want it to scrape. So let's say we want it to scrape 5 pages. So at this point, I already see the flaw in my program, because if you do 5, it's going to come here and it will only scrape page 5. So for it to scrape the 5 pages, we're going to need a for loop. So we're going to need a for loop. We just say for page in pages. Pages is the pages is actually, we hadn't even used it before. Anyway, so pages is what you get here. So for page in pages, uh, what am I doing? Okay, just ignore some of the messes that I'm making here. So we say for page in pages, we want it to basically go through every page. So, and then I'm going to move everything to, okay, this is not going to be efficient because we have nested for loops here. So we have for page in pages, quotes. Okay, now I mentioned that we want 5 pages. So we're going to go to the specific page number, and we pray to God that everything here works. Okay, let's run this. So it's saying type error, int object is not iterable for page in pages. Okay, yeah, I see the mistake I've made here. So the mistake I've made is that I've passed in an integer, and then I'm trying to iterate through the integer, which is a rookie move that I just made here. So I should use, wait, I actually just maintain 5. Then I should say for page, I'll just say, okay, I'll use for I in range. For I in range, this is what I should have done to begin with. Again, my brain seems like it's a little bit fried at the moment. So we'll just say for I in range, the range is 5. Then we replace this with I. Okay, let's clear and run this again. So once we run it, what happens? Okay, it's taking some time to load. So it looks like, oh, awesome. Looks like everything has worked. Okay. So what I should do here is, I think I should have a message. Yeah, I'm going to just have a message, and I'm going to just print a message here that says, okay, not even a message. I'll just return a statement. Return a statement that says done. And then should even return or print it. Let me just okay, let's do this. That should be able to work, and let's run this one more time. Okay, I should have just checked in the beginning. I just wanted to give us an output here. Awesome. So I just need a simple statement to let us know that it has finished scraping. So let's go to quotes. Okay, so we only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10 quotes here. And I just want to check one thing here. Let me see what happens if we just say page is 1. So if we give it page as 1, it takes us to the first page. Awesome. Now what I'll do here, I'll just say for I in range, and we want it to start from 1 all the way from 1 to 5. I hope it reaches page 5. Let's just test that again. So page 5, are there any quotes in page 5? Yeah, we have quotes in page 5. So /page/5. Okay, so it needs to start from 1. Earlier on, it was starting from 0 because I only just included the final that should include there. Okay, let's see what happens here. Done. We go to quotes. We have our quotes here, so it has included a number of the quotes that we need for it to show us. So for it to give us all the quotes, I've made an error somewhere here. My brain is really tired right now, so there's some errors that we've made here that I probably want to notice what those errors were. But this is simply how you can do your scraping. You can extend it further, like as you've seen, for it to give you data from a different page. Well, notice that what I've done here is not efficient. This is not efficient because we have actually two for loops. So we have a for loop here and another one here, which we actually have another one here, which is in terms of efficiency of the code itself. This is not efficient. However, you've been able to see how you can basically quickly scrape your data and store your data if you want to. You can store it in a CSV, you can store it in any other file that you want. You can store it in a TXT file, you can store it in a .json format or .json file. But that is web scraping in Python. If you found this helpful, please like, subscribe. We need to do this video to reach as many people as possible. And if you have any questions, drop them below. And we're going to have a follow-up on scraping, just to try and basically answer some of these questions. For example, what do you need to update on this code that we have here for us to make it better, more efficient, for us to get all the information that we need? Okay, that's going to be it from me for today, and peace.